This is from an engineer's report. The area, there's a sewer inspector just resting for the moment in one of those carved out passages. So again, they look just like this. I've been through a million miles of this sort of thing over time. Next slide. And here's a view inside where that water tunnel Angela was talking about. The main water main under St. Paul runs under Wabasha. Okay, and here you can see the water main kind of, you can see like the sand is falling down on top of it. But you can kind of see a little water leaking out there when, you know, from one of the pipes. That is actually quite one of the reasons we have occasionally have these sinkholes in St. Paul that appear on the evening news. Well, the street opened up and swallowed a car. And well, why, you know, where'd that come from? How'd that sinkhole get there? Well, sometimes what happens is that these very aged water mains spring a leak, okay? And imagine, this is, water's under a lot of pressure here. This thing springs a leak, starts shooting at the wall like a fire hose. How long is it going to take before somebody notices that? It could be days and days before anyone notices a thing wrong. And meanwhile, this thing is blasting with the strength of a fire hose at that wall, carving out a big cavity. And that cavity gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Now finally it gets up to street level, and then a car or some truck comes over and the weight just breaks in the roof of it, and voila, you have a ready-made sinkhole for the evening news. Next slide. You know, my friend Jason was really into weird artistic effects. He was kind of like an underground artist of sorts. And he was always chiding me about walking through sewers and stuff. And some of the stuff he did wasn't any more glamorous. He would spend he would like get these really artistic shots in the St. Paul utility tunnels. And here we see one. I don't know how long he spent just kind of fussing with this to get the right lighting, and you can see the various pipes running through there. You know, that's another question. Like, why are there so many of these? Why does the gas company have, you know, like one tunnel, while an electrical company have another tunnel, telephone company have? It's like, shouldn't they just all put them all in one tunnel? But part of these are competing companies. You got two telephone companies. They don't want to share tunnels. So what do you have? A parallel system. That's like duplication. Some utilities don't go together. You don't want to have electricity and gas together. What if you got a spark? Kaboom! So, you end up with this incredible extra amount of tunnels that it's what's driving a lot of the mileage here. So anyway, so here I'm not sure this is what level this was on. Oh, and then one day, sometime later, I got this postcard in the mail on the right-hand side. Yes, that is a postcard. That was one of his jokes. And he did some weird kind of x-ray kind of view of a rat that he had found in the tunnels. And it kind of reminds me of the Australian Aborigines. They do those petroglyphs of the skeleton and stuff. And he wrote some snarky remark on the other side, like, here's one of your friends, Greg, and then you get this in the mail. It was like, I know who it came from. Next slide. And finally, I'll just finish up here with subterranean rivers. Just a few slides. Trout Brook is one of our St. Paul's most famous subterranean rivers. Look at this idyllic scene from the 1800s. This is probably, trout love good, cold, clear, pure, uncontaminated waters. And it's interesting to think that we might have actually had an actual trout stream in downtown St. Paul at one point. But as the way the world goes, it was, became polluted, and they put it underground into tunnels. Next slide. And this is what became of that idyllic scene. Here we see the junction of Trout Brook and Balin Creek sewers in 1893. So on the left-hand side we have Trout Brook, and on the right-hand side we have Balin Creek. And so why did they put it in a tunnel? Why did they just leave it on the surface? Wasn't that cheap? cheaper. But the reason they put it in the tunnel is because the railroads wanted that land. It just so happens that those stream valleys, due to the natural aggradation of the stream, they happen to be the most even place, the most even incline to go up, to go up a hill and get out of the Mississippi River Valley. So the railroads quickly took over these valleys and then put the streams underground to get rid of them, so to speak, down in the culverts and so on. And that happened to Trout Brook and Balin Creek. So no longer will you find trout in Trout Brook. That stream still flows happily along as it did of yore, but it is now the home of disgusting carp and other such creatures. Trout Brook was one of my favorites, though, back in the day when I explored these places, because it ran all the way to Lake Como. So what I would do, and you can't do this anymore, unfortunately, is there was the outlet for Lake Como over near Maryland, and you would just pop that up and get in there, and it was a 5-mile walk to get to downtown St. Paul, completely through the Trout Brook Tunnel. And I just love that. That was, to me, that was just like, hey, this is really cool. This is this covered passageway. I can walk under everyone's house and street, and nobody knows I'm down there. There were a few hairy spots, I admit. There's one place, I think it was under Maryland, where you just kind of got going there, and there was like a hole about this big you had to go through. And the stream was passing through it too, so you had to like, you know, when you got into that hole, the water then would back up. And then it was like you got to like dam up because of your body, and so you had to like get through it quickly. Balin Creek used to drain Lake Phalen, as its name suggests. But the Balin Creek that we know that runs under Sweet Hollow no longer drains Lake Phalen. All the water that comes out in that artificial landscaping in Sweet Hollow, and then the water that continues down through the Balin Creek Tunnel, that is just local storm water and groundwater drainage. The real Balin Creek still exists, but if you go to the south end of Lake Phalen, it's tapped off and it runs under Johnson Parkway and then down under the old Willowbrook Fish Hatchery on Warner Road. Now it's a DNR's Central Region headquarters, and out to the Mississippi under those big salt piles near the barge dock down there. So Balin Creek comes out of a very different place than it used to. Next slide. And here is a photograph of the open channel segment of Trout Brook along East 4th Street. You've probably driven past this place before. And Trout Brook, it looks like a placid creek, you know, it's just really tame and so on. But if you actually, when you're walking through there, if you look up on the ceiling, near the ceiling, you can see trash snagged up there and so on. You know that this stream can get pretty mean when the water level comes up. And much of the drainage of Lower Town used to come into this open channel segment. That's why they left the roof off, so that this water could just get in there very easily. And so one day in 1983, there's the funny story of the T-bird that got it, that his daddy didn't take it away. It was the stream, Trout Brook, that took it away. And so some guy parked a T-bird along East 4th Street, and then when it started to rain, it got caught up in the swirls and got flushed into this tunnel, and then bumped its happy way out to the Mississippi River. And for some days sat there on the bottom of the Mississippi River just miserably. People would come and look over and see the T-bird down there, you know, so. Next slide. And then starting in the late 80s and early 90s, they rerouted that portion of Trout Brook. It's been sliced and diced many times. And here I am just kind of coming out one of the entrances on the Mississippi River. That's Warner Road there, that just passing along there. Next slide. And then I'll just end up here with Cascade Creek. So So Trout Brook and Balin Creek are the best known underground streams in St. Paul, but Cascade Creek has its remarkable aspects. Cascade Creek, it was called that because it used to pass over the Mississippi River bluffs in a little waterfall or cascade in approximately what had been Cascade Street, but is now Palace Avenue. So kind of down there near the St. Paul School District headquarters down there off of West 7th is where the Cascade had been located. Okay, so when they started developing the West 7th Street neighborhood, this was inconvenient to have this whole waterfall kind of thing right in the middle of things. And so what they did was they decided to put the waterfall underground. This water still had to make its way from street level down to the level of the Mississippi River to drain away. But they built a magnificent artificial structure to do that in the 1930s. And it is this. This is the blueprint of what is called a spiral sewer stairway. And what happens is the water comes in at the top and goes all the way around this spiral, and then it comes out at the bottom at river level. And this was built during the Great Depression as one of those make-work type projects. And it certainly does appear a little bit, it does appear quite elaborate. I mean, overly overbuilt, because nowadays, if you need to convey water from a high elevation down to the bottom, you just have what's called a drop shaft. The water just drops down to the bottom, and they put a steel plate on the floor down to retard erosion. And I don't know why they didn't do that here. So they had to have sewer workers come in here so often that they had to put a stairway in there for them. I don't know. But so the water actually runs down around, spirals down around on that staircase coming up. So this spiral stairway, has been there's more of them. There's two others. There's a total of 3 of these kind of spiral stairways under St. Paul. They have been sort of a magnet for the people who like to explore these kind of things. And in 2009, when my book came out, a photographer was drowned in one of these near Lake Street because he went in when it was just before a rainstorm. Now, with personal electronics, with iPhones, smartphones, so on, it's easy to check a weather report right before you go in a tunnel, right on the spot. You gotta remember back in the day, you like watch the evening news from the night. You try to remember what you'd heard on the evening news the night before, and that was your only weather. It was before the internet. And then now you gotta go in a deadly tunnel based on that faulty information. It's really scary, and people got killed doing that. Next slide. And so here's a photograph of that stairway. And you can see the water's cascading down. It is deposited on this fine stairway, a layer of what's known as flow stone. It's a mineral deposit. So basically what's happened is this water this storm water flowing through this sewer has dissolved the upstream parts of the sewer from miles away, carried all those minerals down here, and then redeposited them on this stairway. I mean, I'm sure the public works would be amused. Next slide. And that's it. So if you have any questions or you'd like to share a story, a reminder, I still have a few booklets left and some other books on the table back there. St. Paul themed books. So I guess I can take questions now if there are any. If you'd like to tell me about your favorite hideout of years gone by. Yep, you in the back.
Yeah, my grandpa worked at a washing station down there.
He worked in them?
He worked in them, which he did. And he used to have a lady that used to bring a deal of beer every day to, some food with some stuff like that. And one day she wanted to go in and see how they were made. So he took her in, and she come out with 3 different shit. All this time, she did not that thing.
Yeah, Lehman's, that is the, that's what is now the Wabasha Street Caves.
But also they were down, we had pictures from Raymond that even down further. They were down by one cave that you had to.
These mushroom growers would frequently own outlying caves too, but I think the main operation for Lehman's was that, and what is now, but yeah, they did own, so the city directories are great for tracing this, because every one of these mushroom caves got its own address in the city directories. So that's why I was mystified before I knew this. Back in the 80s, there was a young man who brought a boom box into one of these caves, and then it collapsed, and he became a quadriplegic. And it said that this occurred in cave 532. And I thought, what does that mean? Cave 532. Well, it's 532 Water Street, so it's really easy to identify these caves. When you look at old city directories, you'll see these major cave owners that have like one here and one here, and then another one down the valley. Yeah, horse manure was really important. Again, some of the special. One of the things that not only the nutrients, the straw and all that stuff mixed in there. But one of the things is that when you put all this horse manure together, it heated up to a certain temperature, and that that drove off a lot of the insect pests, because they had a horrible problem in mushroom growing with all kinds of insect pests and other bugs and so on that would plague the operation. And when as they call it sweating out. It was kind of like a partial pasteurization process. All this horse manure, it would heat up. And up to about 140 degrees, and a lot of these pests would just kind of get out, would just leave it at that point, and then they could kind of not sterilize the manure, but at least make it more suitable as mushroom growing medium. Yeah.
Do you know if Copper Cave ever connected to Stallman Cave given their close proximity? There's no, I spent a lot, I wrote an entire article, I wrote that book on Fountain Cave, but, there's no possible connection that I am aware of, unless someone has dug one in recent years. Yep.
Say, I know you covered Habs and Schmidt or Stallman, but was there a cave system for Yorks? No?
Oh yeah, I didn't even mention, I've left out a lot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the York's Brewery Cave, that was unusual as being a substantial lagering complex in Mushroom Valley itself. And York was in the city very early, like 1848, and York's was one of the last places to advertise themselves as having cave brewed beer right into the 1950s when they ceased operations. And they were proud of it. Well, you have to understand, a lot of the brewers were not proud of having cave beer. It just seemed like, this is like cave beer. It's like, that's like so horrible. I mean, it's like so old-fashioned, and think of someone going in a cave and we want to have like a nice, sterile, up-to-date, modern, pasteurized facility. Everyone in white lab coats and everything pure and so on. So for York, even in the 1950s, advertising their cave-aged beer was a real anachronism. But those caves still exist. They entered the York's Brewery caves were really big in the media around about 2003, I believe it was, when some kids threw Molotovs. They made up some what they thought were Molotov cocktails and started throwing them around in the cave and filming themselves doing this, and then for some reason giving it to the evening news. And that really set off a chain reaction. The bomb squad went in there, and that was a big mistake on their part. So it became like the Molotov cave for a while, about 2003. The cave still exists. The city poured a lot of cement over the entrance.
I walked over there recently and I could see down where a slim individual, probably not me, could just drop down in there. You know, if they went, you know, down through the crevice. I mean, it's really hard to seal those completely. Don't want to get wedged. Next.
Are there any caves or tunnels that we can still do in Minnesota St. Paul?
Well, apart, you know, Wabasha Street Caves, I mean, they have their tours, their gangster tours. But apart from, here's the thing, and thank you for reminding me, insert blurb here. Later the Minnesota Historical Society, I believe, this summer sometime, the dates haven't been set. I'm going to be giving tours through them, just roundabout, kind of like a bus tour. I gave tours, St. Paul underground tours for the Twin Cities underground tours for the University of Minnesota College of Continuing Education for some years. And to answer your question, I had a classroom cave because I wanted to teach people in natural environments, so drawing things on a grease board. But the cave that we had to go to was in Hastings, Minnesota, because in Hastings, Minnesota is the nearest large natural cave on public property that you can go in without paying a fee. And that's how bad, because that's how the concern with liability here in St. Paul and Minneapolis has escalated dramatically in recent years. I mean, these places are just so scared of letting you in there. You might slip and sue them, or you know, it's going to publicize the fact that they do have some kind of interesting space, and someone else is going to want to break in there, and so they just won't deal with it. Okay.
All right, thank you so very much.
Oh, okay.
Greg's going to stay after for a bit for any other questions you may have. But some people to thank. Well, Greg, our own local authority, expert, comedian, all-around
Did
good
you
guy.
say loco or local?
I can't thank you enough, but I will. It was great having you here, Greg. I want to thank some people who made this theater possible. Some of you remember being here, actually, when you were a little younger than you are now. Greg Colosimi, back in the back. If you'll stand up, please, Greg. One of the primary volunteers. Fred standing up front here, who with the Eastside Lions has done yeoman work. There was somebody, oh, my memory was fun. Fred, where's Fred? Fred, I just guessed. Okay. Like I said, my memory is fun. Okay. Alex is at the snack bar. He can't hear me right now, but he's a terrific asset to the theater. Thanks, Alex. And Jennifer Thompson has been upstairs on the...
Jessica.
What is it, Jennifer? Yeah. Jessica. Hi, Jessica. Jessica does not have a spotlight on her, but she's in charge of the operations here. You do a great job, and thank you for your consideration and all you do for Old St. Paul. Are there any other volunteers here that I'm not aware of that need to be want to be recognized for all you did to bring this theater back to its glory days? Hello.